Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about the brand new movie Walden, and this movie mainly starred Emil Hersage, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Shane West, Tanya Raymond, Raymond Ramonde, I believe is how you pronounce their name, Kelly Gardner, David Keith, Steve Coulter, and Luke Davis. And so the movie is full of tons of great actors, but really the reason why I wanted to see this movie was not because of the cast, and I actually never seen the trailer either, but it was actually because of the synopsis. And basically, when I read the synopsis, it said that this story revolved around the character Walden, who ended up being diagnosed with some kind of sickness, and so he thought that he was going to die. And so his profession in this, at least in this movie, what he did for a living was he was a stenographer, which means that he was the guy that sits down during court cases and types out the transcript. So basically anything that's said during the court, during the whole case, he will be the dude that sat down with, I think nowadays they just use computers, but sometimes they used to use, I think, like a typewriter or some form of technology or machinery that was like a typewriter, and he would type up the entire transcript. And so when Walden ends up getting diagnosed or thinks that he's going to be dying from this certain sickness, he decides to take it upon himself to inflict justice on those that the justice system has failed, basically, or has been wrong about. So oftentimes in the movie, if there was a criminal who was, beyond reasonable doubt was guilty, but maybe the justice system failed and the person ends up going free, well, Walden ends up taking it upon himself to punish those people. Now, first of all, I want to say that Emil Hersage, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I'm probably butchering the name, and I apologize if I am. But his portrayal and his performance as Walden Dean was absolutely phenomenal. I do not think that they could have cast anyone better to play this character Walden. And actually, quite frankly, all the cast was done really well. Shane West, he portrays a detective, as the same as Tanya Ramonde, and both of them basically are kind of like, I guess you could say, almost like partners at this detective precinct or at this police precinct. And so they, of course, are the two that are oftentimes arresting these criminals that would go to court. But then, of course, when Walden starts to take justice into his own hands, they sort of start to investigate, well, why is this happening to these criminals? Why is it that all these criminals that are being, going to court but then being let go free, why are they now being punished? And so, like, for an example, one scene in the movie, one of the very first times that Walden acts out and actually totally kills somebody is during a scene or during a case when a guy is convicted of literally cooking a child inside of an oven. And so so the guy ends up getting away with it, and so Walden ends up killing him by cooking him in an oven. And so that's just one really small example of sort of what the movie is about. You could say that Walden is a lot like Dexter, except Dexter is probably, I would say, a little bit more brutal than Walden, and Dexter is definitely a lot more graphic, which is actually one of the biggest complaints I had about this movie, is that I wish that they had have actually went further and showed a little bit more of that graphic, violence, a little bit more of the gore and blood. And I also wish that Walden had have actually, if they had have actually shown a few more situations or a few more, a few more criminals be punished by Walden, because I feel like this movie had a really good idea and it had a really good premise, but it didn't really know how to execute it. Or at the very least, I feel like the movie was actually holding back. So I always wanted the movie to go there, to go a little bit further, but it never really went there. At least not for me, and all these things are subjective. Now, like I said, I really loved the very first time that he killed one, specifically that example of what I was just talking about, of when he cooked the guy in the oven. For me, that was probably the best kill that he did in the entire movie. But I do wish that they had went a little bit further, and I kind of wish that they did make him more like a Dexter, but without the rituals, because Dexter was very ritualistic. He had a method, he had a means, he had a purpose, he had a mission, whereas with this character, Walden, he was a little more spontaneous, a little more sporadic. He didn't necessarily always go with the intent of killing the person or killing the criminal. Sometimes it would just happen, but I still wish that we would have gotten to see that a little bit more. But but it was still fun seeing Walden sort of spiral into that world and see his life go from just being, you know, a stenographer or a stenographer to then, you know, becoming basically a cold-hearted killer, even though he was killing really bad people, but still that doesn't make it right. You know, two wrongs don't make it right. But he had a good heart. But like I said, I really loved how Emil portrayed his character. I really loved that aspect of it. I really loved how the detectives end up playing into the story, especially towards the end of it. It's almost like Walden and these detectives sort of had like a mutual agreement, but not literally coming out and saying that they had an agreement. It's kind of like the detectives knew that what he was doing, almost like they knew that, you know, almost like they agreed with what he was doing, but never truly coming out. He never truly admits what he was doing, and they never really truly, you know, are able to convict Walden or prove that Walden is necessarily doing all the things that are being done. So it was kind of like that sort of like a mutual respect, where the law fails, Walden sort of was stepping in. And so with that being said, I would give Walden a 65%. Like I said, I really wish they had have dove into the gore a little bit more and the graphic scenes a little bit more, but in terms of performances, I thought everybody did a phenomenal job. And like I said, I feel like the movie knew what it wanted to do, but it never quite really went there. And so because of this, I would have given this movie a much higher rating, but it never really went there, at least not for me. And so that's my review for Walden. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this review, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.